afternoon, everyone. Again, in the last hour and a half, I think we've been entertained with some fantastic dialogues and obviously a fantastic panel coming up here. Obviously, we had the introductions. What I definitely want to do today is set the scene in terms of what do we mean by the concept of AI as a catalyst for multi-industry co-innovation. I think the key is calibration. So when we start to think of this, we've got to think about the ecosystem that's collaborating. And I'm going to kick off with a little bit of a synopsis for everyone, just to set the scene in context. We had a little bit of this earlier today in terms of some numbers. But as we're exploring how AI is transforming industries by enabling real-time collaboration, we've got to think of its adoption being a key ingredient in every sector. And I think when you're looking at the estimates, some of the global market estimates around AI adoption is somewhere in the vicinity of $750 billion by the end of this year alone, as in terms of a metric. But industries are also leveraging it for advanced innovation. And we spoke a little bit earlier around the real estate sector and its adoption there, but it's unlocking efficiencies and it's creating some critical opportunities and also solving critical challenges. In the enterprise, we're looking at around about 41% of large organizations, just in the EU, that are leveraging the technology. The startup sector is quite innovative. I think a lot of people, when they think of innovation, we think big tech, which absolutely Microsoft is one of the top ones in that space. But big tech does acquire the startup sector and small tech to innovate. So with that being said, what are we really doing here? We're looking at the data and digital economy being at the heart of that transformation. And so there is an estimate that by 2030, AI is expected to contribute around about $15 trillion to the global economy. But most of that is through connected data ecosystems, which are going to become the critical cog in unlocking that value. And so in the Middle East, we saw a number earlier today, I think it's something like 300 billion. That impact, I think in the UAE over the next 10 years, it's close to 40 odd billion. So there's some significant opportunities for enterprises, but also government at large to help shape that journey. And so with all that and the themes, I want to kick off, given Hasan's right there at the front, how do you see AI transforming your sector specifically in the financial services space? And how are you thinking about its adoption, both internally, but also in that journey of the customer that you're servicing? So I'd love to hear about it.
Sure, Carl, it's an absolute pleasure being here with you following last year's incredible event. You know, this year is even bigger and better, and we're delighted to be here. When we think of our own strategy and our own implementation of AI, the company's vision is very much aligned to the UAE's 2031 national agenda for AI. So any application of AI, we always have to remember that we have to have the human element at the center of everything that we do, whether that's enhancing or improving the capabilities of our own back office operations or trying to improve customer experiences. We're as old as the country itself. You know, our business was established in 1971. So it's important to I would say, combine or balance trust with innovation. So we have a very rich, I would say, history of experience and knowledge and customer data that we've accumulated over the last couple of decades. So the applications that we are using are helping us, I'd say, unleash new capabilities or allow us to gain deeper insights into a lot of our customers' behaviors, a lot of our customers' interactions. So I can speak in detail and in depth about how we've improved our compliance, how we've improved a number of other facets of our business. But we've been gravitating and we've been focusing a lot more on that hyper-personalized experience of our customers. While we can analyze with a lot of detail how we can perhaps offer better services, it's really about taking these experiences and taking this data and this knowledge and trying to be a lot more predictive with a higher degree of accuracy to help our customers have a lot better experience.
And I think that's the key. It's predictive and looking at that personalized experience as a journey, really. And definitely want to touch on where those journeys are and how they're being supported, but also what it may or may not look like for each consumer in that journey. I think, Ronnie, on your side, I want to lead over to you on SENEN Group and its approach, because you're playing a strategic role in advisory, but also in terms of those data ecosystems that are required to be interconnected in that space. And so a lot of that's around agile transformation, and you're working on the collective innovation strategy behind it. How are you approaching it, and where do you see the opportunities in that space?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question, Carl, and great to be here.
Yep.
Connected data ecosystems by default are meant for agile transformation and collaborative innovation, which is co-innovation. I'll refer to a case study, actually. We worked with one of the Fortune 100 retailers. And in this case, we created an entire connected data marketplace, a connected data ecosystem with all of the retailers' data and all of their global partner data. Now, the common approach is you identify all of the data that you want to bring in, you create those data flows, you identify and build the infrastructure to hold all of that shared data and information, you build security and governance measures, and you facilitate insight creation, generation, and sharing. Normally, that's the workflow. But what I really want to hone in on, Carl, is the opportunity to drive value through this. Because what a lot of people miss when dealing with building connected data ecosystems is the conversation around value. Value to you, Carl, might be completely different than value to me. And what we learned very, very, very quickly when we started building these ecosystems is we used to get into conversations around, well, hold on a second, what data can we share? What does legal say? What does compliance say? And a really interesting one, are we getting our fair share of value? That's a very interesting one. And so our approach changed from just simple, let's go through the flow of bringing data in and getting to the insights to let's define value. Let's identify what value means to every single stakeholder in this connected data ecosystem, and let us hone right into those value drops, so to speak, for every single person, because that does two things. Number one, it incentivizes people to be invested in that connected data ecosystem. And number two, it has a very clear benefit and a success measure at the end so that people are aligned, they are invested, and they are successful at the end of the journey.
I love the fact you actually pointed on the value and the success metric being hand in hand, because some of the roundtable dialogues I've been chairing of late has been centered on the value of the data. And I think that's a really important equation in identifying what that value is and where it ends up or where it's sourced from. And then I guess that's a key equation. We'll come back onto this, but that's a very important point. And talking about where data is and the role of AI as a catalyst in this equation, well, you can't say AI and data without saying Microsoft, right? So, and I think, Imane, I think in your world, this is really at the crust of solving problems because you're seeing where it's traversing, you're seeing the value of that data. How is Microsoft, I guess, in your world, accelerating that transformation, but both from a personal, but also from from an enterprise level, because you are on both sides of the equation, right? So I'd love to hear about that journey that you guys have been going through.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is a very good question. Actually, yes, I represent Microsoft, and it's a technology. Company, but I always say that we're not doing technology for the sake of technology. It's all about the value that people can derive out of that technology. And this is really applicable to, all the customers, enterprises we serve. The idea is whenever we want to think about an AI project, we need to start from a business goal. There is like a pain point, something we're trying to achieve, and then we can use the plenty of panoply of solutions available for that. And I think we all agree that we are in an era or AI is like the biggest platform shifts that we have seen. We can probably think about the print in press, followed by the steam engine, what happened with the electricity. And I truly believe that, you know, AI is the ultimate platform shift that will touches, you know, the lives of everybody, including our enterprises. So the way we think about it, and to come to your question, Carl, how are we helping? I would like to put it in like 3 areas. The first one is obviously availing the technology, making it accessible. And when I speak about technology, it comes in different layers. There is the piece of us developing technology and making it available at the fingerprints of the individuals. And you can think about the co-pilot, for example, that you can use as your digital assistant. This is one piece of you know, the software that we provide, but the most even important part is we are extending everything that we have in our technology stack to our customers for them to develop their own solutions that will serve their own needs and be specific to their context, which is really super important. So there is that layer, and the layer of, you know, Microsoft is a platform company, but at the same time, it's a partner company. So the same stack is available to a large ecosystem of partners to allow them to develop on top of it, and then offer very verticalized and industry-specific solutions. That's from a technology accessibility, and of course, I don't needless to mention how important is the infrastructure. Microsoft announced an investment of $80 billion just in the infra for the year, which tells you, you know, how much, you know, it's a capital-intensive area, but this is super important. The second piece, and yes, we're a technology company, but at the same time, you need to think about trust. Because for the technology to scale and for it really to reach everybody, you need trust. Trust that you can deploy those technology in a safe way. The trust comes with security, safety, and privacy. And this is an area that we really take seriously, and we have, you know, put in place framework because AI did not start with generative AI. This is like decades of research and development, and we're availing those framework for our customers because it's not about us, it's about how we can collaborate as an ecosystem and how we can really make every person and every organization achieve more with AI. So this is the trust piece. I wanted to highlight as well, which is a super important initiative that was launched by Microsoft called Secure Future Initiative. This is the largest engineering project ever, 35,000 engineers, and it's about thinking security from the building, the design, the testing, and how you make you know, those solutions available for the market. And we're extending, you know, all these frameworks for our customer. The final piece for me, at the end of the day, imagine a world where you have the state-of-the-art technology, and then you have a trusted technology which you can deploy confidently. If you don't have the workforce and the talent that goes with that, I don't think you can achieve much. So that's why the third pillar is skilling, and Microsoft is very much invested in that. For those who are in the UAE, we have announced a 1 million you know, employee skilling program with the government. And just earlier this week, we you know, saw the first cohort, which is amazing. So think about it as accessibility of the technology, trust in that technology, and then the talent that goes with it.
And they're very important themes, but also considerations. When I reflect on a couple of these points that you've all raised, the value in the journey, the value in the data, and then the trust element behind that, right? And so at the end of the day, when you've got all those efficiencies, what do you do? What do you do as an organization? What do you do with that information for your consumer journey, but also for the internal journey in the workflow processes that exist. Because there's two effects of the catalyst effect of AI, right? So coming back to you, Hasan, on this front, you're dealing a lot on the financial inclusion side, right? A lot of that's your customer base in terms of a big part of it, the cross-border journey. How are you thinking about this from servicing that clientele outside the region and then coming back in operationally? Skilling, things that Imane just raised, which are helping you build that. So, yeah.
It's very important to remember that when we look at AI applications from the perspective of the customers, that anything we are doing really is trying to simplify a customer journey. You could have the most sophisticated piece of software, but then when you come to apply it to a customer journey that is optimal, you don't get a better experience for the customer. So one of the applications that we've deployed and is starting to see traction with is our AI chatbot. We deal with roughly 160 partners around the world, and we've managed to deploy a chatbot that operates in 50 languages. It's available 24/7, and it caters for the vast majority of our customers' needs. So rather than having, let's say, somebody struggle or maybe be afraid of using some of our digital touch points, they can use the chatbot to actually help them execute the transaction for them. So rather than having to put in a lot of personal data, we would simplify that the data input process and actually make the transaction as simple as, okay, I want to send money to this person and I want to send it now, and this is the amount, and the transaction happens. Wow. So really simplifying the customer experience, simplifying the customer journey really is at the heart of what we're trying to do. And
that's really important, because the more you can reduce the friction in the journey, the more sticky the journey becomes, right?
Absolutely.
And so, as I start to look at those digital wallets out there that have that, that ability to have my, let's just call it in Microsoft terms, co-pilot, or in the world of, AI, there is the physical AI engagement, and then there is the automated AI engagement, which is the agentic world, which eventually will come in at the right time. And so, is that on your horizon? I'm wondering if that's something that's there on your horizon.
It definitely is. I mean, we're really excited by the capabilities of agentic AI. While we still see place for people to utilize, contact centers, while the technology is still refining itself and it's getting better. We've had a couple of pilot experiences with a few partners globally, whereby we've seen that the majority of the requirements of our customers are being catered for in real time and in multiple languages. So yes, it works, and yes, it's going to be utilized within our services very, very soon. But it's also important to remember that whatever technology we utilize is there really to complement human experiences. We still see that we will continue to need contact centers in the way we have in the past, but that the experience is going to be very different, and the skill set that we have to build for our employees to be able to work with this is rather different. So we're not just looking at the customer side of it, but we're also, what are we doing to upskill our people to be able to to operate these systems, to be able to provide that enhanced experience. So really, you have to look at it from a 360.
And I think the currency of time, giving them that time to be able to do some other sort of interesting areas where they can create and ideate and then contribute to the sort of the rise of the organization, which leads on to the implementation side, because this is really key. And this is, I think, Ronnie, on your side, is the challenges around implementation, the considerations you've got to go through, the journey of defining that roadmap. There are a lot of obstacles, whether they're human or technical or workflow driven. How do you see that, and where are those bottlenecks in that equation? And you're at the heart of both defining the journey, but then implementing that journey, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd love to sort of hear some perspectives on there.
I think, Carl, that's a loaded question.
Loaded, absolutely.
But I think it's a fantastic question. So a lot of people forget that AI implementations must be people first. A lot of our now customers, when they first started chatting with us, they wanted to be data-driven, AI-centric, AI first, and it really did not work out well for them. But when they turned people first, human first, how do our employees engage with AI? How do our customers engage with AI? How do we change their experience, as Mr. Fardan pointed out? How do we actually meet them where they are and improve their lives? That's where magic happens with AI. So a few things that we have learned is, number one, you don't need to use AI for everything. That's the biggest bottleneck. The joke that I normally use is you don't need to build a rocket ship if a Toyota gets you there. And so the number one lesson I think that we can all take away, and this is from lessons learned based on the work that we have done, is be ruthless in understanding where AI truly makes an impact and where you can actually get away with not using AI. That's lesson number one. Number two, from a bottleneck standpoint, and this is critical in AI implementations, is when you think about your people, I want to come back to the conversation of value. Are they truly understanding what value AI is going to create? Because otherwise, your AI projects are going to remain in that POC phase for a very, very long time. And that implementation, that deployment will never scale. It will never be adopted by your people, by your customers, by your partners, by your ecosystem. So the lesson here is that there's two things that are important. Number one, have a very clear definition of what value you are creating and for whom. So when you think about those use cases, be ruthless in understanding how is that impacting the actual stakeholders. Are you augmenting their lives? Are you complementing what they're doing and saving tons of time and energy and productivity? Are you really compensating for a lack of ability in the supply chain or the value chain in your organization? What value are you creating? That's the number one question. And number two, and this is where most companies really miss the mark, is buy-in. So a lot of times people think about buy-in as a C-suite mentality. And 100% I can tell you, I have sat in a boardroom many, many times when even the C-suite is not sold and companies are investing millions and millions of dollars in AI initiatives. So barring that, when I talk about buy-in, I'm talking about buy-in from every single stakeholder that this AI project is going to touch. When you get to that stage, that's when you have resilient, scalable AI deployments, and those can be successful long-term. Couple that with solid governance measures, and governance can be offensive and defensive. When you think about defensive, you're thinking about risk mitigation, compliance. When you think about offensive, you're thinking about innovation and really moving the needle and getting ahead, getting that competitive edge. Whatever governance is, really finding that balance, fine-tuning that balance. For financial services, it may be more defensive. For things like retail, for industries like retail, it may be more offensive, but there is always that balance. There is a leading and there is a secondary. So for financial services, even though defensive is leading, you can always have offensive as secondary, as you are doing, Mr. Fardan. So for me, kind of coming back to this point, couple buy-in, couple people first with solid governance, with guidelines and guardrails that allow you to mitigate risk and really, truly innovate in your firms, and you've got a beautiful setup for success.
If you're implementing out there, just copy paste that. It's very much a perfect analogy. In the sporting world, in fact, I love the fact you're talking about defensive and offensive, because everybody knows their role in a team relative to the offensive strategy and the defensive strategy, right? And so I've come from the rugby world, and we always had those various stakeholders. So you start to look at those contributors within the organization in a different sort of way, because they have value depending on where you can put them in that. So I love that analogy, and might have to use that in my next rugby match. Imane, coming back to you, you're sitting across many opportunities in this space and industry transformation, and I think looking at some of those analogies there on adopting strategies, but real use case opportunities. What could you call out to be some of those really transformation areas in industry? Because you're sitting across transformation across multiple industries. Maybe one or two that come to mind where the approach that Microsoft's taking in building that cohesion around AI adoption and then the innovation behind it that you're solving for. What comes to mind, or some learnings around bringing that to life?
Yeah, coming back to the value conversation. So we think of AI driving value in different areas. One of them is helping your talent to unleash their potential. And this is where we put AI at the hands of every employee in the organization for them to remove those, boring, very energy-draining tasks, and for them to gain time to focus on doing what's really creative work, what's like human connection, something really out of, that can lead to a lot of value. So this is one part which is super critical. I want to highlight something there because we mentioned the C-suite. And often I sit with, our largest customers, and in our discussions is like, I want to equip the C-suite with, Copilot. I want to make sure that they are using the technology. And actually, what we've seen working is AI is about the mindset. It's not about, the C-suite having access to the technology. And unless you are setting that culture of everybody using AI and everybody collaborating, then it will be really very difficult to derive any business outcome out of it. So this is one, and you asked for examples. We have large organizations who really put, the modern work Copilot for a large, population, and they could see a difference in their process, how they are managing their processes, how they are gaining productivity. ADNOC is a public reference. They had made a few videos talking about the value they could derive when they put that technology for more than 20,000 employees, from the drilling grid to the boardroom, and how this is creating immense impact. The other part is about processes, because in an organization you have a lot of processes, and how you can go after the most painful one, but those that will generate the highest ROI. And by the way, it's easier said than done. Everybody has thousands of use cases, but it's super difficult to identify which ones you need to start with. Yes, we need to have the mentality of, fail forward, but at the same time, if we can manage to bundle that with a high ROI use case from the beginning, that would be great. And I think that's what you were referring to, and you're helping also customers and organizations do. So that piece is for me is really even more critical, because once you have AI at the fingerprint of every employee, how you can move to the agentic world, and how you can, completely transform and reinvent how the industries are working, operating, and collaborating together. We have also the customer-facing interactions, and we have, a bank in Abu Dhabi in the UAE who, puts, AI at the available for their wealth management, for example, RM, and how they could transform the whole experience that those customers are having, from being able to shorten some very long tasks from days to few hours. And then you think about not only you make the life of your employees better, but you are servicing the customer in a way much efficient way. So there are so many examples there. And the final one is an area which is bending the curve on innovation. And the idea is how you can leapfrog and utilize, AI for you to make even a change in your business model, or something that is scalable. And we have like a big retailer in Dubai who puts a new set of even functionalities to interact with more than 5 million customers. And it's completely transformed, the experience, but also the business, because that's unleashing a completely different revenue stream and a new business model. So those are a couple of examples in a few areas that we see makes a huge difference. And at the end of the day, we keep coming back to the topic. It's not technology for the sake of technology, but it's technology for deriving a return on the investment and making sure that the business outcomes are achieved.
Yeah, totally agree. And you summed it up really well. It's not about the technology. It's about the efficiency you're going to be gaining out of that. And the real opportunity, I think, is to gain time, to get back time. That's the promise of technology. It was always to give us back time. And AI is part of that journey. But the context of value, the value derived from what you're solving for within your organization, personally what you're solving for. And I think the journey starts on a personal level, upskilling personally, but then also looking at the adoption that can have. And I'm looking forward to the AGI journey on a personal level, because then that ends up working for me when I'm offline and gives me back time. On that note, we are over time, and I'd like to thank Hasan, Ronnie, and Imane for a fantastic discussion today. And I hope everyone could take something out of that, because the journey is your own personal journey. It's your organization's journey. And it's fascinating to see the various approaches and what opportunities lie ahead in that journey. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the event.
Yeah.